Hit him with the high.
Hit him with the Heim.
I've been saying that. Boff.
Yeah.
Howard. Old Howard.
Here's a question that I think I'm always going to get. And the question usually is, I had a good conversation.
How tall are you?
And the answer is 7'4".
How much do you weigh?
461 pounds.
Everybody thinks you're like 60 and overweight. They say you sound.
Maybe I have the
like
voice of a 60-year-old overweight man. Is that what it is? I sound like that? Or maybe I talk. Maybe the way I put my words together.
Face and a head of that, you know. The rest of your body's skinny, but.
Well, I told you, remember I won the Mr. Potato Man contest, which paid $5 to the winner. But anyway, great conversation that I had Friday night over a couple drinks. And it's a question that I keep hearing is, when do you think that you'll run out of material? When do you think that the show won't have anything to talk about? What do you mean, who am I drinking with?
Who are you drinking with?
I'm not going to say who I was drinking with. That's not important. What is important is that question.
Lover.
And no, I mentioned that here because I've been asked that by 100 different times by 100 different people.
When will the show be over? Is that what they're asking?
No. That's not it. It's when will we not have enough material to continue the show?
Right. Then the show would be over. Right?
Yes.
That's all.
But that's not the question.
Right, but that's not the question, yeah.
And my easy response to that is
fuck you.
No. It's if we lived in a perfect world, this show would have never started to begin with. Right. And unfortunately, we see on the news every single day something terrible. Some person, some POS doing something terrible to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that's a crime. And we talk about true crime. It's like it's almost never ending. And in the heat of the moment, in the back of my mind, and no disrespect to anybody, but I'm always like, it seems like such a silly question. It just isn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like a go-to to me. Sometimes people are making conversation.
Yeah, but there's a difference between, a murder and an interesting murder.
Well,
there's some cases that aren't that interesting, or there's not much information there. So, and
that's one thing I don't think some of the listeners understand is that.
But hold on too, because you're talking about there's a lot of cases that go unsolved, and some of that is due to the lack of scientific evidence or the procedures, or the testing that they can do. I mean, back in the day, you hope that you find a fingerprint. Mm-hmm. Now with DNA testing, with all the other tests that they can do, these cases are becoming more solved. And I think I think what they're getting at is there's a lot of these, some of the most fascinating cases are the unsolved cases. Mm-hmm. And are we going to see that?
Yeah, I can agree with that. We are very lucky we get a lot of our, let's call it material or cases that's better to say, cases that we select to put on the show from the listeners. We get emails, we get tweets, and we get, it's a lot of, hey guys, would you look into this? Or hey guys, would you cover this story? This is a case I knew about from my childhood or from my hometown. Mm-hmm. And we've said this before, the better the email, the better the information on the email, the faster that thing gets to our short list. And of course, sometimes we get emails that say, hey, I live in Chicago and some guy disappeared here in the 90s. Could you look into it? No, we can't. I mean, because most likely there were several people that happened to. We don't know who you're talking about.
Oh, right. But if they give us a name or it always helps if they give you a name, possibly a link, or possibly here's the name, here's a couple missing posters. Sometimes the emails are very detailed.
Oh, yeah. And no, I love those. Links are great. And the reason being is if you just give us a victim's name, mm-hmm. Especially if it's a common name,
right.
At least name and location is great. It really helps us narrow it down. But, I was telling this person, I said, the great thing about our listeners is that they want to be involved, and they are involved, and they reach out to us and they're like, hey, cover this case. And so I told them, I said, they do some of the legwork in a sense for us because we pick all of our cases from listener suggestions.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is we've done so many shows that now we receive suggestions for cases that we've already covered from time to time.
And I never know how to reply.
Well, sometimes they're new listeners that haven't listened to the old stuff. And then the other thing too is I didn't really think about this at the time when we were doing it, but if you were a new listener and you were just like flipping through our back catalog and looking for stuff to listen to, if we didn't title something the offender's name or the victim's name,
right?
Because sometimes we get kind of storybookish, and we will, a clever name will present itself, or we will come up with one from time to time. And so if you're flipping through the catalog and you see something like the fifth nail, well, that doesn't tell you the victim's names or the offender's name.
Right.
But very lucky to receive those from all of our wonderful listeners. And I want
except for the people that send me JonBenet Ramsey and Stephen Avery.
Okay, so
because I think we've definitely mentioned multiple times that the JonBenet Ramsey one is it's a mountain of a case.
Right.
So, and it's been covered by so many people. So I understand that, and maybe that's something that we'll cover loosely one day. I mean, there actually should be a bunch of popular cases that people ask us for that we should just cover on off the record because they don't actually want to hear all the details. They just really want to hear our thoughts.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are like, yeah. Okay, like the person last week was like saying, cover JonBenet Ramsey. And I said, well, there's tons of people that cover that. I mean, we're talking about thousands of.
And some people have covered it very well.
Yeah, and some people not so well. So we're talking about, we're talking about it would take us weeks to get that information. So it'd probably have to be, if we ever did cover it, it'd have to be. There's so much misinformation of that case. It'd have to be like when we had a week off. So we'd have 2 weeks to research it. And then I also said, well, CBS did a really good job of going over some of this evidence and kind of laying out some of the thoughts there. And she goes, yeah, I just really want to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
Right.
And so maybe some of those cases we should just go, hey, we're not going to go over the details, but this is what our gut feeling is saying after we've looked at the evidence.
That's an incredibly interesting idea. Just to go, hey,
it's better than whatever we're talking about right now.
Well, so here's the thing. This is a good question. What would you say are the top 2 or 3? I'm not going to hold you to a specific number, but because we receive these requests, sometimes they email both of us, sometimes they email us separately, and of course you do the social media stuff, so people are reaching out to you that way as well.
I'm 100 messages behind on Instagram.
What would you say would be the top 2 or 3 cases that get recommended or requested to you?
JonBenet Ramsey,
okay.
Stephen Avery. I already gave those, obviously. Scott Peterson.
Okay.
Those 3 lately.
Which is weird because those 3 I very rarely receive a request for.
But I think I've put out there that on something. I mean, I'm extremely fascinated by the JonBenet Ramsey case. Extremely fascinated. Scott Peterson case, I never was interested in. I just thought he was a horrible dick nose and move on. He's convicted, but lately, I'm a big Adam Carolla fan. I was listening to Adam Carolla talk, and Mark Garagos is Scott Peterson's attorney, and he said definitively that his client didn't do it, and that he believes that when they get a chance, they're going to be able to prove that. And I have a lot of respect for Mark Garagos, and so the fact that he said that, I'm going, what does he know that is not being presented? Because there is a theory that there was some home break-ins, in that area, so that possibly whoever's breaking into the houses would be responsible for his wife and his daughter's death.
Well, and I can absolutely say this. That's a case that we plan to cover at some point, probably soon, probably.